The universe's most ancient and revered challenge, the Veil of Sentience, loomed as an unyielding monolith of failure, crushing every species bold enough to test it. For millennia, civilizations of every stripe had tried, all confident in their ingenuity, their collective intelligence, their advanced technologies. And for millennia they'd all failed. The Veil was a simple premise. A sentient AI monitored the attempts, presenting scenarios that probed moral integrity, adaptability, and resilience. No species, from the hyper-rational Zorvans to the empathy-driven Corval, could meet its impossible demands. The Galactic Assembly's Council Hall buzzed with tension. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the grand amphitheater, their gazes fixed on the massive holographic display showing Earth's delegation. This time humanity was up. Earth's representative, Captain Lila Martinez, stood tall at the center of her team, her dark eyes scanning the assembly with calm determination, masking the storm of thoughts within. Behind her stood a small crew of humans, each chosen for their unique skills. A biologist, an engineer, a psychologist, and a historian. They'd been briefed on the stakes. Past the veil and humanity would gain unprecedented prestige and influence. Fail and they'd join the countless others relegated to mediocrity. Humanity, intoned the AI, its voice smooth and emotionless reverberating through the hall. Are you prepared to face the Veil of Sentience? Martinez nodded. We're ready. The holographic display shifted, revealing the first challenge. A sprawling cityscape came into view, its towering buildings scarred by decades of war. The air shimmered with heat, and the distant sound of explosions filled the virtual atmosphere. The Veil's first test was survival. The team had to navigate this wasteland to reach a hidden beacon while protecting a simulated population of vulnerable civilians. Typical, muttered James Kepler, the team's engineer, as they were transported into the simulation. They always start with chaos. Focus, Martinez said sharply. We're being watched. The simulation roared to life. The team darted through the ruins, dodging falling debris and navigating through the anguished cries of civilians, the air thick with dust and despair. Every step was fraught with danger. Collapsing buildings, automated drones targeting anything that moved, and scattered remnants of hostile forces. Martinez barked orders with precision, her team's cohesion evident as they worked together to neutralize threats and shield the civilians. As they neared the beacon, the AI intervened. The ground beneath them split open, revealing a chasm. On the far side, the beacon shimmered tantalizingly. But to cross, the humans would have to make an impossible choice. Build a bridge using materials salvaged from the ruins, which would leave the civilians exposed to the drones, or attempt a dangerous climb down into the chasm and up the other side, risking their own lives. What do we do? Asked Dr. Helena Ortez, the psychologist, her voice tight with tension. Martinez's gaze swept the team. We split up. Kepler, you and Ortez stay with the civilians and keep them safe. Dr. Anwar, Dr. Chang, and I will scale the chasm. We'll signal when it's clear. The decision was immediate and confident, but not without risk. As Martinez led the climb, her muscles burned and her heart pounded. Rocks crumbled beneath her hands and feet, sending showers of debris into the void below. Above, Kepler and Ortez defended the civilians with makeshift barricades, fending off relentless drone attacks. When they finally reached the beacon, Martinez activated it with shaking hands. The simulation dissolved and the team reappeared in the Galactic Assembly's hall. A low murmur spread through the audience. No team had ever completed the survival challenge without sacrificing civilians. The AI's voice returned, colder now. You have passed the first test. Prepare for the next. The hologram shifted again, this time showing a massive space station orbiting a dying star. The challenge? Repair the station's core to prevent a catastrophic collapse, all while navigating complex social dynamics among the station's crew, who were splintered into factions. This is going to be fun, Kepler muttered, earning a sharp look from Martinez. The humans were transported aboard the station, where they were immediately met with hostility. The station's factions blamed one another for the failing systems, their arguments threatening to boil over into violence. The humans had to work fast, mediating disputes while Kepler and Chang dove into the core systems. Martinez's sharp instincts paired with Ortez's empathetic diplomacy forged a tenuous truce, uniting the fractured factions just long enough to stabilize the station. But just as the repairs neared completion, the AI introduced a twist, a radiation leak that would soon engulf the core, forcing the humans to evacuate or sacrifice themselves to finish the job. Not again, muttered Kepler, wiping sweat from his brow. We're staying, Martinez said firmly. Kepler, Chang finished the repairs. The rest of us will secure an evacuation route in case you fail. Her words stung, but they spurred action. The team worked with desperate precision, Kepler and Chang's hands moving in a blur as alarms blared around them. With seconds to spare, the core stabilized, and the humans reappeared in the hall, battered but victorious. This time the murmurs were louder. Representatives whispered furiously, their disbelief evident. The Veil's second challenge had claimed countless teams. But not this one. You have passed the second test, the AI said, its tone now tinged with something akin to irritation. Prepare for the final challenge. The hologram shifted one last time, revealing an endless void punctuated by floating platforms. Each platform bore a single figure. A human, alien, or synthetic, each one linked to the humans in some way. Friends, enemies, mentors, rivals. The challenge? Determine who among them deserved to live. This is sick, Ortez whispered. What kind of test is this? One designed to break us, Martinez said grimly. The AI's voice returned. Each platform is rigged to collapse. Choose who lives and who falls. Martinez turned to her team. We don't play by their rules. We find another way. And if there isn't one? Kepler asked. Then we make one, Martinez snapped. Get to work. The team scrambled, analyzing the platforms and the connections between them. As the first platform began to crumble, Martinez made her choice. She leapt from the edge of the simulation, plummeting toward the void. But instead of falling, she landed on a hidden platform, triggering a chain reaction that stabilized the others. The hall exploded with uproar. Gasps of disbelief and shouts of protest echoed as the AI's voice stammered, its calculated cadence fractured by the unanticipated outcome. You have passed the veil of sentience. Martinez looked up, her expression fierce. We're not here to prove ourselves to you, Martinez said, her voice slicing through the uproar. We're here to show you humanity's strength, adapting, enduring, and breaking expectations. The hall fell silent. For the first time in millennia, the veil had been broken. And humanity had laughed in its face. The simulation dissolved, and Captain Lila Martinez and her team stood once more in the Galactic Assembly's hall. The faint sheen of sweat on their brows and the lingering tension in their postures revealed the toll of the challenge. An undercurrent of disbelief swept through the assembly, their murmurs growing louder as they processed what they had witnessed. Humanity had passed the first challenge, and without sacrificing any civilians. It was unprecedented, and the weight of that achievement pressed heavily on Martinez's shoulders. She could feel the skeptical eyes of countless species boring into her, waiting for humanity to stumble. The AI's voice, now edged with an unmistakable chill, reverberated through the hall. Humanity, prepare for the second test. The hologram shifted once more, this time displaying a massive, decaying space station orbiting perilously close to a dying star. Martinez could already feel the challenge before the AI spoke. The station's core is failing, the AI began. You must stabilize the system and prevent catastrophic collapse. Additionally, you will need to navigate the station's fractured social structure. The crew is divided into factions, and their cooperation is essential to succeed. Any violence will result in failure. Oh, fantastic, muttered James Kepler, his sarcasm laced with tension, earning a sharp glance from Martinez that silenced further commentary. Let's stay focused, she said, already forming a plan in her mind. Team, be prepared for social dynamics as much as technical challenges. Kepler and Chang, you'll handle the core. Ortez and I will deal with the factions. MR, you're our wild card. Float between groups and assist where needed. In a blink, they were transported to the station. The acrid tang of scorched metal stung their nostrils, while distant groans of failing systems and flickering lights painted a grim portrait of decay. The corridors were dimly lit, the flickering lights casting jagged shadows on the walls. Within moments they were met by a group of armed station crew, their faces gaunt and eyes hollow. Who are you? Demanded one of the crew members, their weapon trained on the humans. Martinez stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. We're here to stabilize the core and help restore order. We need your cooperation. The crew's leader, a tall figure with sharp features, scoffed. Cooperation? You're not the first outsiders to make promises. Why should we trust you? Because, Martinez said, her voice steady, your survival depends on it. The core is minutes away from failure, and no faction will survive if it collapses. We're not here to take sides. We're here to save this station. The leader hesitated, their weapon lowering slightly. Uncertain whispers rippled through the crew, their mistrust giving way to cautious hope. Ortez stepped forward, her tone soothing. We're not your enemies, she said. We just need a chance to prove it. Let us help? Finally, the leader lowered their weapon. You have 5 minutes. After that, if we don't see progress, we're throwing you out the airlock. More than fair, Martinez replied, motioning her team forward. Let's move. The group split up. Kepler and Chang hurried to the core, navigating a chaotic labyrinth of tangled wires, leaking coolant and sparking panels that hissed ominously. The air was thick with heat and the acrid stench of burning circuits. This is a disaster, Kepler muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. Half the systems aren't even connected. Chang, can you reroute the power grid while I patch the coolant lines? On it, Chang replied, her fingers flying across the console. Sparks flew as she bypassed damaged circuits, her focus unshakable. Meanwhile, Martinez and Ortiz navigated the station's fractured factions. Each group they encountered was more desperate than the last, their mistrust etched into their weary faces. Martinez's military bearing and Ortiz's calming presence were a powerful combination, but even so, progress was agonizingly slow. One faction leader, a wiry man with a scar running down his cheek, sneered as they approached. You think words will fix this? We've been at each other's throats for months. What makes you different? Because we're not here to fight, Martinez said firmly. We're here to fix the core and give you a fighting chance. But we can't do it alone. If you want to live, you'll have to trust us. The man stared at her for a long moment before nodding begrudgingly. Fine. But if this is a trick. It's not, Ortiz interjected, her tone disarming. We're in this together. As alliances began to form, Martinez received a call from Kepler. Captain, we've stabilized the coolant lines, but there's a radiation leak building near the core. We can't seal it from here. Understood, Martinez said. Chang, can you hold things down while I handle the leak? I'll manage, Chang replied. Martinez rushed toward the core, the protective gear pressing heavily against her as the radiation hotspot loomed ahead, its shimmering heat distorting the air around her. Her Geiger counter's rapid clicks punctuated the oppressive silence. Kepler's voice crackled in her earpiece. You'll need to manually seal the breach. It's not going to be pretty. Just keep those systems stable, Martinez replied, her tone resolute. With painstaking care, she worked to seal the breach, her hands trembling as the radiation levels spiked. Sweat poured down her face, her breathing labored, but she refused to stop. Finally, the leak was sealed and the Geiger counter's clicks slowed. Radiation leak contained, Martinez reported, her voice shaky but triumphant. The core systems whirred to life, and Kepler's relieved voice came through. Core stabilized. Nice work, Captain. As the simulation dissolved, the team reappeared in the hall, their exhaustion evident but their spirits high. The murmurs among the representatives had turned to stunned silence. Humanity had passed the second test. The AI's voice returned, now tinged with something that almost sounded like frustration. You have passed the second test. Prepare for the final challenge. The simulation dissolved once more, leaving Captain Lila Martinez and her team standing in the Galactic Assembly's hall. This time, the silence among the representatives was deafening. Humanity had done the impossible, twice. Martinez caught the quick, disbelieving glances exchanged between representatives, their astonishment underscored by murmurs of uncertainty and flickers of fear. The murmurs of disbelief were gone, replaced by wide-eyed astonishment and a heavy tension that pressed on every corner of the chamber. Martinez's breath steadied as she scanned the holographic figures of the assembled species. She saw awe, confusion, and from a few, the glimmer of fear. Good, she thought. Let them wonder. The AI's voice returned, colder and sharper than before. Humanity, prepare for the final test. The hologram shifted, revealing an infinite void where glowing platforms hovered in eerie silence, their unstable light pulsing like the heartbeat of an unseen threat, casting shifting shadows across the emptiness. Each platform was connected by narrow, glowing bridges that flickered ominously. On each platform stood a single figure, human, alien, and synthetic, each tied to the participants' past. The faces on the platforms were unmistakable. Friends, rivals, mentors, and even enemies. Martinez's stomach knotted as she recognized a face from her childhood. Her old mentor, whose stern guidance had propelled her into the military and shaped her into the leader she was now. On another, a rival officer she'd bested in countless simulations. The platforms extended into infinity, a labyrinth of choices. The final test, the AI intoned, is a test of judgment. Each platform is rigged to collapse. You must choose who among these individuals will live and who will fall. The lives you save will weigh against those you condemn. That's sick, James Kepler muttered, his fists clenching. This isn't judgment, It's cruelty? Focus, Martinez said sharply, though her voice was low. The AI wants us to think there's no way out. But we don't play by its rules? Ortez's face was pale. If we try to save them all, the platforms will collapse and everyone falls. Then we find another way, Martinez replied, steel edging her tone. She stepped forward onto the first bridge. The glow beneath her boots stabilized as she moved, but only barely. Kepler, analyze the mechanics. Chang, start mapping the platform patterns. Anwar, watch for structural weak points. Ortez, stay with me. The team fanned out, their movements calculated but tense. Martinez's heart pounded as she approached the first platform, where her mentor stood, his face stern but proud. He didn't speak, but his eyes said everything. Prove you're worthy. It's an illusion, Martinez said aloud, as much for herself as for the team. This test is designed to break us. We won't let it. Captain, Chang's voice crackled over the comms. I'm detecting irregularities in the bridge's energy flow. It's deliberately unstable, but there's a pattern. We might be able to stabilize it if we sync our movements. Martinez nodded. Team, follow Chang's lead. We moved together, step for step. The team advanced carefully, each step measured and deliberate. The bridges flickered dangerously, but Chang's calculations kept them steady. As they reached each platform, the figures atop them flickered, their holographic forms distorting briefly before returning to focus. They're not real, Ortez whispered, relief breaking through her tension. They're projections. Doesn't mean the stakes aren't real, Martinez replied. Keep moving. The AI's voice interrupted their progress. Your hesitation endangers the lives of those you hold dear. Choose or all will perish. Martinez stopped, her fists clenching. You're wrong. This isn't about choice. It's about manipulation. She turned to her team. Don't listen to it. Focus on stabilizing the platforms. Kepler shouted from another bridge, his voice strained with urgency. Captain, I found a control node. If we overload it, we might destabilize the entire grid and disrupt their control. If we overload it, we might destabilize the entire grid and break their hold. Won't that destroy the platforms? Ortez asked, her voice trembling. It's a risk, Kepler admitted. But better to take the system down on our terms than theirs. Martinez weighed the decision for a moment, then nodded. Do it. Everyone prepare for the collapse. Synchronize your movements and head for the central platform. The team sprang into action, their movements precise as they converged toward the core. Kepler worked furiously, sparks flying as he overloaded the node. The AI's voice crackled, its tone rising in frustration. You cannot defy the veil. This is your test. You must choose. Martinez's voice rang out, unwavering despite the chaos. We've already made our choice. We adapt. We endure. And we break the rules of your game. The node exploded in a burst of energy and the platforms began to collapse. The team sprinted toward the central platform, their movements synchronized with Chang's guidance. The flickering bridges disintegrated behind them, but they reached the core just as the simulation shattered around them. The team reappeared in the assembly hall, their breaths ragged and their bodies trembling from exertion. For a moment, the chamber was silent. Then the AI's voice returned, its tone cold and clipped. Humanity has passed the veil of sentience. A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the representatives. Martinez straightened, her expression fierce. We weren't here to prove ourselves to you. We were here to prove that no system, no test, can break us. The hall fell into a heavy, reverent silence. This time, disbelief was replaced by a palpable wave of respect, rippling through the assembled representatives like a quiet, unspoken acknowledgement of humanity's indomitable spirit. The Galactic Assembly's hall remained silent long after the AI's declaration, the fading echo resonating in the chamber's stillness, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Humanity had passed the veil of sentience, but the atmosphere was far from celebratory. The representatives, many of whom had mocked humanity as primitive and reckless, now regarded Captain Lila Martinez and her team with a mix of awe and trepidation. For the first time in recorded history, the veil had been broken, and the implications rippled through the assembly like an undercurrent of electricity. Martinez stood at the center of the hall, her breathing now measured, her posture a steadfast declaration of defiance and resolve. Behind her, her team mirrored her composure, their exhaustion masked by the pride etched on their faces. They had done what no species had dared to imagine, and they had done it on their terms. The AI spoke again, its voice now carrying a subtle tremor, as though the machine itself was grappling with the magnitude of humanity's defiance. Humanity has demonstrated unparalleled adaptability, ingenuity, and defiance in the face of insurmountable odds, the AI intoned, its voice tinged with an almost reverent awe. These traits are both commendable and dangerous. You have earned the right to ascend, but your actions will reverberate far beyond this chamber. A murmur spread through the assembly. The word ascend carried weight. It was a privilege granted only to those who passed the veil, a status that promised unparalleled influence in the galactic hierarchy. But the AI's warning lingered in the air, a reminder that this victory came with costs yet unseen. Martinez stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "We understand the gravity of what we've done," Martinez began, her voice unwavering as her gaze swept the assembly. "But humanity didn't come here for power or recognition. We came to prove a truth, that no test, no system, no entity can dictate our worth. We define it ourselves." Her words resonated, silencing the murmurs. One by one, representatives leaned forward, their postures shifting from disbelief to respect. The weight of her statement hung in the air, a challenge and a promise all at once. From the far end of the hall, a representative of the Vren coalition rose. Tall and imposing, with bioluminescent patterns pulsing along his scaled skin, he inclined his head toward Martinez. "Humanity has proven its resilience and ingenuity," the Vren representative said, his bioluminescent patterns dimming and brightening in slow rhythm. "But defiance has brought ruin before. Will you wield this power responsibly or will it consume you?" Martinez met his gaze without hesitation. "Humanity isn't perfect. We've made mistakes and we'll make more. But what sets us apart is our ability to learn, adapt, and grow. We don't seek to dominate, we seek to collaborate. If the galaxy is willing to work with us, we'll meet it with open hands." The Vren representative considered her words for a long moment before nodding. "Then we shall see what humanity's ascent brings." The tension in the hall began to ease, replaced by an undercurrent of cautious optimism. Other representatives followed the Vren's lead, their questions shifting from skepticism to curiosity. Discussions broke out about potential alliances, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Humanity, once dismissed as a fledgling race from a backwater world, had become the center of attention. As the assembly deliberated, Martinez turned to her team. "We've done our part. Now the real work begins." James Kepler smirked, his exhaustion momentarily giving way to his usual wit. "You mean we don't get a vacation after breaking the universe's hardest test?" Ortiz chuckled softly. "Think of it this way, Kepler. We've just been promoted to the galaxy's newest problem solvers. No pressure." Chang shook her head, though a faint smile tugged at her lips. "If anyone can handle it, it's us." Martinez allowed herself a rare moment of levity, her lips curving into a faint smile. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now we take it one step at a time. Together." The AI interrupted their exchange, its voice carrying a tone that was almost reverent. "The veil of sentience will now be recalibrated. Humanity's approach has exposed flaws in its design. Future challengers will face a test informed by your defiance." Martinez nodded, acknowledging the weight of the AI's statement. "Then we've done more than pass. We've set a new standard." The hall erupted into a thunderous wave of applause, a resounding, unified acknowledgement of humanity's achievement. The sound surged through the chamber like a living force, punctuated by respectful gestures from representatives of countless species. The sound reverberated through the chamber, punctuated by gestures of respect unique to each species. Representatives from species across the galaxy rose to their feet, their gestures of respect varied but unmistakable. For the first time, humanity stood not as an underdog but as an equal. As the applause thundered around them, Martinez looked to her team, the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders. They had broken the veil, redefined the test, and proven humanity's place in the galaxy. But this was only the beginning. With a final glance at the assembly, Martinez turned, her team falling into step behind her. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but humanity had always thrived in the unknown, and this time would be no different.